The sky over Mars burned as it always had, a deep and restless red. Yet tonight its hue was different, darker, heavier. Great plumes of dust rose like banners of war, and the forged temples hummed with a resonance older than any human tongue. The surface trembled beneath the steady, measured heartbeats of something vast. They were waking. The Titans. God machines older than empires, born of the Omnissiah's breath and the labor of uncountable generations, stirred in their sanctums. A slow chorus of hymns rolled through the cathedrals of steel as Mechanicus acolytes prostrated themselves, their voices drowned beneath the rising power of reactor cores and plasma veins. And you, listener, must know that in this moment you are part of it. We do not simply tell these tales for the sake of history, but because we love you enough to share them in all their terrible beauty. You are welcome here, among the ash and the iron. Before we begin the story, tell us, where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it there? Now grab your coffee and let's get started. On the surface of Mars, amidst the endless manufactoria and titanic assembly halls, Archimagos Dominus Kyle Vor stood upon a bridge of black iron, his cloak whispering with the static of his internal power cells. His form was more machine than man, but the flicker of a human soul still burned within the glacial core of his logic engine. His eyes, cold, artificial lenses, swept across the endless rows of god machines, resting like slumbering titans beneath vaulted ceilings. A world prepared for war, Kale thought. But war was never the true enemy. The orders from Terra had been clear. The Titans of Mars were to march in the Emperor's name against an emergent Xenos threat. The Legio Mortis, Legio Graphonicus, and Legio Astorum all stood ready to stride forth. Yet Kyle, loyal as he was in word, could not help but feel the pull of something deeper. For centuries, Kyle Vor had served with obedience. He had overseen the maintenance of sacred god engines, approved countless forges of weapons and engines. His devotion to the Omnissiah was unquestionable, his loyalty to the Emperor absolute, at least in the eyes of his peers. But beneath the perfect machine of his mind, an older program ran, a question buried deep, long forbidden. Could Mars ever stand free of terror? The wind from the forge vents howled like a dying choir as Kale turned toward the deepest vaults of the Noctis Labyrinthus. It was there he had received the signal, a fragment of binary so ancient it was almost myth. No code identifier, no Mechanicus stamp of approval, only a whisper across the noosphere. The Fabricator General had not spoken of it. None dared. But Kale had felt the pulse of it. It called to him in ways that threatened the balance between his faith and his ambition. As the Titans awoke, Kale's thoughts drifted to the hidden archives, sealed under the Omnissiah's most sacred decree, buried deep. Within were patterns, designs, and perhaps salvation. Yet he knew the cost. All knowledge came at a price, and this price could be higher than the loyalty Mars owed to Terra. Archimagos Vor, a voice broke his reverie, vox distorted. It was Princeps Erend Varro of the warlord Titan Imperius Tenebris, his tone sharp, respectful, but edged with concern. The god machines await your command. Will we march at dawn? Kale's lenses shifted to meet him. Erend was a man bound to his Titan for decades, flesh fused to the throne mechanicum, mind sharpened by war, loyal, dangerous, a reminder of the human soul that still beat beneath the godlike weapons. Yes, Kale replied, voice like the grinding of gears. We march. But the march of a Titan is never simply forward. It carries all of Mars with it. Erend's brow furrowed slightly, but he said nothing. His duty was to war, not to philosophy. Kale turned back toward the slumbering machines. their shadows long against the red-lit floor. For now he would obey. For now Mars would answer Terra's call. But deep within, the question burned brighter than ever, whispering through circuits and dreams alike. Could Mars stand alone? Outside, the god machine's reactor hearts beat in unison. The Forge world trembled. War would come. But Kael Vor's war had already begun. The sunless skies of Mars bled rust and iron over the forged temples, their endless spires rising like the fingers of a supplicant god. Beneath those jagged towers, the Mechanicus labored in perfect rhythm, an endless tide of servitors, priests, and engines, all humming the canticles of the Omnissiah. But in the depths, beyond the noise and ceremony, there were whispers of something that did not belong to the litany of loyalty. Archmagos Dominus Kael Vor moved through the Hall of Ascension, his steps measured, cloak drawn close. Each stride carried the weight of centuries of service. Along the walls, ancient banners of Titan legions hung, their colors faded, but their oaths eternal. At the center of the hall, a Titan's command throne sat enshrined, its cables and conduits as sacred as relics of bone and blood. Kael paused before it, his mechanical fingers brushing against a worn inscription. All knowledge is his gift. All obedience is his price. A simple truth. Yet truths could be bent. The new spheric channel in Kael's mind chimed softly. Erend Varro's voice filled the static. Archmagos, the Legio stands ready. The warlord engines have undergone their final sanctification rites. The manifold awaits your signal. Kael transmitted acknowledgement without a word. Erend's loyalty was a constant, reliable as the reactor pulse of Imperius Tenebris. But Kael knew even loyalty had its limits, and Erend's faith might not withstand what was to come. Kael's mind turned to the fragment he had intercepted, data so old that it predated the founding of the Legio Titanicus itself, a forbidden schematic, the last trace of a standard template construct thought lost forever. And with it, the blueprint of a god machine unlike any the Mechanicus had ever built. The signal's origin lay deep within the ghost archives beneath the Noctis Labyrinthus. Accessing them would mean bypassing the authority of the Fabricator General, a crime tantamount to treason. But the image of that machine haunted Kael, towering beyond the height of any warlord, armed with weapons whose names no tech priest dared speak aloud. As Kael stepped into the command sanctum, Erend awaited him. The princeps bowed his head, augmetic ports glinting beneath the low red light. You seem burdened, Archmagos, Erend observed. The war front is clear, the Legio is prepared, and yet your thoughts wander. Kael regarded him for a long moment. War is never simply the destruction of the enemy, Erend. It is the shaping of the world that follows. Tell me, do you believe Mars can endure without terror? Erend hesitated. Without terror. The Omnissiah's will is one with the Emperor's. The Forge serves the Imperium as it has for 10 millennia. That is enough. Kael's mechanical lenses narrowed. Enough. It was the kind of answer he had expected. Faithful, measured, and utterly blind to the possibility of a different future. They walked together to the Titan hangar, where the god machines loomed in shadow, their forms like the silhouettes of walking mountains. Tech priests scurried at their feet, chanting in bursts of binary. Incense smoke curled through the air, masking the ozone tang of plasma cores. Kael's gaze lingered on Imperius Tenebris, Erend's warlord, its armor plates etched with kill marks that stretched back centuries. A masterpiece of destruction, and yet still limited by the patterns handed down from Terra. Erend followed his gaze. She's ready, Kyle, as she's always been, and she'll answer, as she always has, to the Omnissiah's will. Kale nodded absently. He could almost hear the hum of the ancient data fragment in the back of his mind, pulsing like a second heart. When Erend departed to attend to final preparations, Kale lingered, opening a private channel into the restricted Martian datanet. His systems brushed against the perimeter defenses of the Ghost Archives. Warnings lit up in crimson script across his mind's interface. Access denied by decree of the Fabricator General. Kyle's fingers flexed. His personal access code, layered with centuries of political favors and hidden authorizations, began to unfurl in threads of complex cipher. The lock trembled. Somewhere, far below the surface, the first seal on the Forbidden Archive shifted. A whisper, pure, uncorrupted binary, slipped into Kale's mind. It was not a voice in any human sense, but it spoke to him nonetheless. Awaken the sleeper. Bring the true God to stride again. Kyle exhaled, the hiss of his internal respirators the only sound in the chamber. He turned to leave. The Titans would march for terror at dawn, but for Kale Vor, a far greater march had already begun. The morning of Mars was no brighter than its night. The sky remained cloaked in the same endless rusted haze. The sun no more than a dim ember filtered through storms of iron dust. Deep in the cathedral of god machines, the ritual awakening of the Titans had begun. It was a ceremony older than most imperial worlds, repeated without deviation for 10,000 years. And yet, to Archmagos, Dominus Kyle Vor, the rite felt different this day. The air was thick with the static of charged plasma reactors. Choirs of tech priests chanted the hymns of activation in binary bursts, their vocoders ringing in perfect mechanical harmony. Servitors scuttled like beetles across the armored legs of the Titans, fastening ceremonial wards, checking sacred conduits. Kyle walked the bridge that overlooked the hangar. Below him stood the great god engines, Imperator, Warlord, Reaver, each a cathedral of destruction. They were more than weapons. They were symbols of Mars' mastery over all that was mechanical. As he walked, Kale's mind drifted to the Ghost Archive. In the silent hours of the previous night, he had broken the first seal. The data fragment had shown him visions, the frame of a titan that dwarfed the mightiest Imperator, its silhouette crowned with weapon systems whose functions were only partially comprehensible. Its name, if it had one, was lost to the noosphere, scrubbed clean by orders as old as the Horus heresy. But the image lingered in his mind like a holy vision, or perhaps a heretical temptation. Princeps Erend Varro intercepted Kale on the bridge. His expression was sharp, though tempered with the discipline of a man long bonded to a god machine. "You have been restless, Archmagos," Erend observed, his voice low to avoid the ears of the tech priests below. "I have fought beside you for decades, but never have I seen you so divided." Kyle paused, turning his cold mechanical gaze toward Erend. "Division is the natural state of the mind, Princeps. It is the friction that sharpens all thought." Erend's eyes narrowed slightly. "Perhaps. But friction can also start fires, and fires can consume more than they refine." Kale did not reply. Instead, he gestured toward Imperius Tenebris, Erend's warlord titan. "Your god engine is prepared for war." "As always," Erend replied. "She is eager, but I sense hesitation in your orders. The Legio Mortis waits for the signal to depart. Why the delay?" Kale's mechanical fingers tapped the railing lightly, a gesture he rarely made. "War is not simply about killing the enemy, Erend. It is about the alignment of the right conditions. The march of a god machine must be timed to perfection. Every stride, every blast of the plasma annihilator must serve a greater design. Erin studied him for a long moment, but said nothing more. As Erin departed to join his crew, Kyle turned back toward the endless ranks of titans. His vision flickered, overlaying the sacred silhouettes with the design from the archive. For a heartbeat, it was as if the forbidden titan stood among them, dwarfing even the imperators. A voice brushed against the edge of Kale's mind. Not sound, not words, but a raw pulse of data. Awaken me. I will make Mars sovereign. Kale's optical lenses dimmed for a fraction of a second. He left the bridge and descended into the Titan's ritual maintenance bay. The chamber was heavy with incense smoke, the scent of sacred oils mingling with the ozone of active plasma conduits. At the base of the hangar, Kale activated a private cogitator, an ancient device, its surface inlaid with symbols so old they predated the Imperium. From here, his access to the Ghost Archive deepened. The second layer of cipher unfolded like a mechanical flower. The image of the Forbidden Titan became clearer. Weapon arrays that bent known classification. Reactor cores, unlike anything within Mars's sanctioned forges. It was not simply a machine. It was something else, something that could change the balance of power between Mars and Terra forever. Kyle felt the tension coil tighter within him. The canticles of activation swelled behind him as the god engines roared to life. The ground trembled under the synchronized steps of Titans taking their first careful strides. The hangar echoed like the inside of a massive bell, every movement accompanied by hymns and machine code blessings. Kyle stood at the heart of it all, a figure both integral and a part, commander of the present war and architect of a hidden one. He gave the order. The Legio will march at dawn. The words echoed through the cathedral, a signal that the war for the Emperor had begun. But in the hidden archives of Mars, the second seal was already waiting to be broken. The dreams came to Kyle again. They were not dreams in the mortal sense. His mind was a lattice of circuitry and thought, his rest a period of quiet processes. And yet, within that silence, visions bloomed. He saw the Titan again, the one from the Forbidden Archive. It was more than an engine of war. It was a shape against the void, crowned in black fire, its silhouette vast enough to blot out the light of a star. Its footsteps crushed worlds, its weapons unmade fortresses in a single barrage. It carried no insignia of the Mechanicus, no banners of the Imperium. It bore only the symbol from the ancient file, a circle within a broken cog. The Titan leaned down in the dream, its voice resonating not in sound, but in pure binary, piercing his mind with a message. You will make me whole, and in return, I will make Mars free. Kale's systems jolted back into waking protocols. The dream still lingered. It was getting stronger. In the waking hours, Kyle stood within the command sanctum of his forge, staring into the hololithic schematics of the Legio Titanicus's current deployment. The Titan legions were aligned for war against the Xenos threat, every engine accounted for, every princeps in place. On the surface, everything was as it should be. But in the hidden manifolds beneath the data layers, Kale had diverted small amounts of resources, microscopic shipments, overlooked in the shadow of the greater war effort. Each fragment of plasteel, each micro-fusion conduit, each arcane cog, was being redirected to a site buried deep within Mars' crust. It was there the prototype would be born. The forge was not officially recognized. It did not appear in the Fabricator General's registry. Its gates were guarded by loyal Skitari, bound to Kale's personal command. Those few tech priests who served within it believed they labored on experimental ordnance for the front lines. In truth, they were laying the foundation of something far greater. Princeps Erind Varro visited the sanctum that day, his presence an unwelcome but inevitable interruption. His augmetics whirred softly as he entered, his gaze fixed on Kyle. "You have been distant," Erind said, "even more than usual. I thought perhaps the coming war would bring your mind into focus, but instead you seem buried in your own calculations." Kale's mechanical features betrayed nothing. "My calculations serve the war. That is all you need concern yourself with." Aaron stepped closer. "I know you well enough to recognize when your thoughts move beyond the battlefield, Kale. You've been speaking to no one of consequence. Your orders come through clean, but your eyes, they look elsewhere." Kyle turned back to the holographic display, unwilling to meet Erin's gaze. "My eyes see Mars as it is, Erind, and as it could be. You have commanded a warlord titan long enough to understand that a battlefield is not the only place war is fought." Erin's silence was not agreement, but neither was it defiance. They walked together to the Titan hangar. The Colossi loomed in silence, their machine spirits quiescent after a day of testing and calibration. Each one was a miracle of engineering, an ancient covenant between flesh, steel, and the divine spark of the Omnissiah. As they walked, Kale's gaze caught on the Imperious Tenebris. Even now, the warlord's presence stirred in the noosphere, a machine spirit, proud, loyal, and fierce. But even that loyalty was bound by patterns older than either of them. He imagined the prototype standing beside it, taller, stronger, independent of Terra's chains. Erin's voice broke his thoughts. "We will deploy soon. The Fabricator General expects you to oversee the first battle personally." Kyle nodded absently. "I will attend. But understand, Erind, the war we march to may not be the war we return from." Erind studied him for a long moment, but said nothing. He turned and left, his steps heavy against the metal floor. Kyle lingered, eyes fixed on the shadows between the titans. His mind returned to the dream, the promise of the machine yet to be built. Far below, in the hidden forge, the first components of the prototype's frame were being assembled. Its reactor core lay dormant, waiting for the moment it would awaken. Kyle's thoughts burned with both awe and dread. The second seal on the archive would not hold for long. The world of Dagonar 4 burned beneath a sky of blackened ash. From orbit, the planet's surface looked like a single wound, scarred, smoking, broken. But on the surface, the true scale of its suffering could only be understood by those who walked upon it. Cities lay flattened, their skeletal remains buried under the treads of god machines. The soil itself boiled where plasma annihilators had struck. The air was thick with ozone, oil, and blood. And yet, in that devastation, the Titans of Mars strode as gods. Archimagos Dominus Kyle Vor stood upon the command deck of the Vigilum Prime, the primary support vessel for the Legio Mortis and its allied forces. From this vantage point, he could oversee the march of the god machines in real time, each step of each Titan a line of scripture being written in fire upon the surface of Dagonar IV. The warlord Titan, Imperious Tenebris, led the manifold, its silhouette vast even among giants. Princeps Erind Varro's voice came steady across the Vox channel, each command precise. Target grid Gamma 4 neutralized. Enemy fortification collapsed, awaiting next vector. Kyle's mechanical eyes tracked the display. Xenos structures fell before the Titan like paper before flame. Each salvo from the Sun Fury Plasma Annihilator carved a new scar into the world. Each step crushed what resistance remained, and yet Cale's thoughts wandered. This was war as the Imperium expected it, predictable, controlled, limited by patterns written 10,000 years ago. The Titans here were powerful, but they were constrained, operating under rules and doctrines that had been unchallenged since the days of the Great Crusade. He could not help but imagine what the prototype could do here. One Titan, built to the specifications of the forbidden STC, could achieve in hours what required entire legions today. It would not simply break the enemy, it would erase them utterly. Across the field, Kyle watched as a Reaver Titan staggered under concentrated fire from the Xenos war machines. Armor plating cracked, one leg buckled. Erin's warlord shifted position, intercepting the attack with a fusillade of plasma fire that turned the enemy line into molten ruin. Reaver Magnificus Rex is stabilizing, Erin reported calmly. No breach in the reactor core. Kyle keyed the Vox channel. Efficiently done, Princeps Varro. Mars honors your precision. Erin's reply carried a trace of dry humor. Mars honors the Omnissiah. I only follow the will of my machine spirit. The battle raged on. Hours passed in fire and thunder, the Titans advancing step by crushing step. The enemy could not withstand them. By nightfall, Dagonar 4 was broken. Kyle stood at the viewing gallery as the Titans returned to the landing zone. The ground trembled beneath their footfalls, each god machine carrying the wear of battle upon its armor. Erin's Imperius Tenebris strode at the center of the formation, banners streaming, armor scorched but intact. The Vox opened once more. Archimagos, Erin's voice came, quieter now. Victory is ours, but tell me, why do I sense in you no satisfaction? Kale's eyes narrowed slightly. Victory is a step, Princeps, but steps lead somewhere. Mars marches to more than just Terra's wars. Erin was silent for a long moment. If you are marching us towards something else, Kale, I will need to know what it is. Kale offered no answer. Instead, he turned away from the viewport, his thoughts already returning to Mars. The prototype's frame would be nearly complete by now. The war here had provided the cover he needed to divert still more resources to the hidden forge. As the Titans of Mars stood in silent formation, beneath the blood-red light of a dying sun, Kale knew that the true war had yet to begin. The red horizon of Mars stretched endlessly, an ocean of dust and silence. The Legio Mortis had returned from Dagonar 4, its god machines now resting in their sanctums. Victory songs echoed in the Vox, the priests of the Omnissiah intoning rites of gratitude. But beneath the surface of Mars, in a place no hymn reached, another machine was awakening. The hidden forge was buried far below the Noctis Labyrinthus, accessible only through locked passages guarded by Skitari, whose loyalty was bound directly to Archimagos Dominus Kyle Vor. Here, the air was thick with the hum of experimental reactors, their output carefully masked from the broader Mechanicus grid. The prototype stood incomplete, but its form was undeniable. Even without armor plating, its skeletal frame towered above the assembly floor. Servitor crews worked tirelessly, welding sacred joints, binding massive adamantine struts. Plasma conduits the width of hab blocks wound through its structure like arteries waiting for the flow of a heart that had not yet begun to beat. Kyle stood upon an elevated platform, looking down upon the machine. It was both beautiful and terrible. Each line of its frame spoke of forbidden mastery, each unorthodox system a defiance of Mechanicus doctrine. It did not resemble an imperator or a warlord. It was something older, something purer. Progress is accelerating, intoned Magos Lexium, one of the few who understood the true nature of their work. His voice was dry, filtered through layers of vox distortion. However, there are irregularities. Kyle's optics shifted toward him. Define irregularities. Lexium hesitated, his mechadendrites twitching nervously. The machine's spirit, it is responding ahead of schedule. We have not yet installed the full command manifold, and yet its presence stirs. It sends pulses through the reactor housing, almost as if it knows. Kyle's mind processed this. In the dreams, the Titan had spoken to him. He had assumed those visions were his own mind, interpreting encrypted data. But perhaps. Continue the work, Kyle ordered, his voice even. The machine's spirit's awakening is a sign of its purpose. We will guide it. Lexium bowed his head, though Kale could sense the unease in his movements. In the days that followed, Kyle divided his time between the political stage of the Fabricator General's Council and the Hidden Forge. To the wider Mechanicus, he was the same loyal Archmagos who had brought victory at Dagonar 4. But here, in the depths, he was something else, an architect of a new era for Mars. Princeps Erend Varro's visits became more frequent. Kyle noticed the way Erend watched him, the way his questions circled closer to dangerous ground. On the third day after their return, Erend intercepted Kale in one of the upper forges. You've been scarce, Kale, and not just because of council sessions. The Skitarii under your command, they move in patterns I don't recognize. Kyle did not slow his stride. You see patterns where there are none, Princeps. The war required diversions of resources. You of all people understand the demands of the Omnissiah's will. Erend's eyes narrowed. I understand the demands of loyalty, and I understand when someone is hiding something behind that loyalty. Kyle paused, meeting his gaze fully for the first time. Be careful, Erend. Curiosity is a dangerous thing on Mars. Erend did not answer, but the look in his eyes told Kale the matter was far from over. That night, Kale returned to the Hidden Forge. The machine stood silent but alive, its frame now fitted with partial armor. The sigils on its surface glowed faintly, though no power had been formally routed. The second seal in the archive broke as Kale approached the control manifold. New schematics unfolded, revealing the Titan's true designation. Its name burned into his vision in ancient binary, Ordinatus Machina Ultima. The machine's spirit's voice returned, no longer a whisper, but a presence that filled the entire forge. Bring me completion, Kyle Vor, and I will bring Mars to glory. The council chambers of the Fabricator General were cloaked in shadow, lit only by the shifting glow of hololithic projectors. Mechanicus icons floated in the air like drifting embers, each one marking the seal of a Titan legion or a forge world. The Fabricator General himself sat upon a throne of black iron, his form a towering amalgam of machine and flesh, his voice carried by the rumble of ancient vox emitters. Archmagos Vor, the Fabricator General intoned, his optical arrays sweeping toward Kale. Your recent campaigns have brought distinction to the Legio Mortis. Dagonar 4 is secured. The Omnissiah's blessing rests upon your forge. Kyle bowed his head in precise acknowledgement. The Titans march only by the will of the Omnissiah. I am but a servant to that will. The chamber was silent for a long moment, the only sound the hum of distant reactors. Kyle felt the eyes, both human and machine, of the gathered magi upon him. Then the Fabricator General spoke again. And yet, there are reports, resource allocations unaccounted for, Skitarii deployments unregistered in the central manifolds. I trust you will clarify these discrepancies. Kale's mind moved with the precision of a machine. His voice remained calm. In the war for Dagonar 4, emergency redirection of resources was necessary to ensure victory. These measures were temporary. Full accounting will be provided to the Council. The Fabricator General's optical arrays flickered briefly. A pause. See that it is so. The session ended without censure, but the air in the chamber felt charged, as if the walls themselves carried suspicion. Kale left the council hall in silence, his thoughts already on the hidden forge. Far below the surface, Ordinatus Machina Ultima grew closer to completion. Armor plating now sheathed much of its frame. Its reactor housing pulsed faintly, and the first binding of its machine spirit had begun. Tech priests in Kale's service moved with the precision of ritual, their chants layering binary code into the Titan's systems. But the spirit was restless. As Kale approached the command dais, the forge seemed to darken. The air grew heavy with static, the very auspex displays on the walls distorting. A pulse of binary thunder rolled through the chamber. I am not made to slumber. I am made to stride. The chains must break. Kyle's mechadendrites flexed involuntarily. Patience, he replied in the machine language, his words carrying both authority and reverence. You are not yet ready to face the galaxy. Your frame must be perfected, your weapons sanctified. The Titan's presence pressed against his mind like a storm. Every hour we wait, Mars kneels. Every moment, terror binds us. You built me to end this. Kyle did not answer immediately. His optics scanned the chamber, noting the progress of the final systems. Soon, the Ordinatus Machina Ultima would be capable of motion. Soon, it would be a weapon beyond the control of any but him. Above, in the surface forges, Erend Varro was growing more restless. Kyle met him 2 nights later in the hangar of the Imperius Tenebris. The princeps stood at the base of his warlord, the massive machine's form looming in silence above them. You've been hiding something, Kyle, Erend said, his voice steady but edged with steel. You think I don't notice the convoys that never return to the main manufactoria? The magi who vanish into the Noctis Labyrinthus and never resurface? I've been loyal to you for decades. Don't make me choose between loyalty and truth. Kale regarded him with cold precision. The truth, Erend, is a weapon, and weapons are only revealed at the moment. They are needed. Erend stepped closer. And when that moment comes, will the Titans of Mars still answer to Terra, or only to you? Kyle said nothing. That silence was answer enough. Erend turned away, but his words lingered. If you take Mars down a path of treachery, Kyle, you will not walk it alone. You will drag all of us with you. As the princeps' footsteps faded, Kyle returned to the hidden forge. The Titan's reactor beat like a second heart. The third seal in the archive waited, and Kale knew, when it broke, there would be no turning back. The forge, deep beneath the Noctis Labyrinthus, thrummed like the heart of a god, Ordinatus Machina. Ultima was no longer a skeleton of adamantine and promise. It was a titan taking form in truth. The armor plates gleamed with sacred oils, runes etched in lines of silver and gold. Its reactor pulsed with a rhythm that was neither mechanical nor entirely alive. A deep and steady beat that seemed to echo in the bones of every tech priest who stood in its presence. Kyle Vor stood on the upper gantry, looking down at the machine. The third seal had been broken. The archive no longer spoke to him in fragments. It flooded his thoughts with full schematics, weapons systems, and subroutines so alien they bordered on heretical. Weapons no legio possessed. Reactors capable of output beyond any sanctioned design. Systems written in machine code Kyle had never seen in the Mechanicus lexicon. and above all, a phrase that burned across the final layer of the archive: for the liberation of Mars. Princeps Erend Varro's shadow hung over Cale's thoughts as much as the Titan did. The man had grown quieter, but Cale knew that silence hid motion. Erend was watching, perhaps even reporting. Cale had summoned him to the surface-level forge that morning, a gesture that was both routine and calculated. "You called me away from Imperius Tenebris," Erend said as he approached, his tone measured. "I assume this is not about a weapons calibration." Cale's mechanical lenses studied him. "You have questions? Ask them." Erend hesitated, then spoke plainly. "You are building something. Off the records. I don't need proof to know it. I want to know why, and I want to hear it from you, not from some whisper that reaches the Fabricator General's ears." Cale stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Because Mars cannot remain forever as it is, Erend. We serve Terra, but we are not Terra's servants. Every Titan we build is theirs to command. Every victory we win is theirs to claim. What if we could build something for Mars alone?" Erend's eyes narrowed. "You're talking treason." "I am talking survival," Cale countered. "The day will come when Terra's wars bleed us dry, when the Titans are spent on causes that do nothing for Mars. Do you think the Omnissiah's will is to remain forever bound?" Erend looked at him for a long moment. "And if you succeed, if Mars is free, what happens to everything we've fought for?" Kyle's voice was calm. "Then Mars fights for itself." Erend said nothing more, but Kyle could see the weight of the words settling on him. That night, Kyle descended once more into the hidden forge. The Ordinatus Machina Ultima loomed in silence, but its machine spirit was awake. The air was thick with static. The tech priests in attendance moved with reverent precision, each one a shadow in the glow of the reactor. As Kyle approached the control dais, the machine spirit's voice filled his thoughts. "I am ready." Kyle's mechadendrites flexed. "Not yet. Your frame is complete, but your armament will be complete when I stride." The voice interrupted, sharper now, more commanding. "You delay because you fear, but I was not made for fear. I was made for war." Cale's optics dimmed for a fraction of a second. The moment is not yet right. The Titan's presence pressed closer. The moment will never be right if you wait for permission. Break the chains, Cale Vor. Above, alarms flared in the surface forges. Cale accessed the data feed. Convoys near the Noctis Labyrinthus had been intercepted by Mechanicus patrols. Erend Varro's name appeared in the encrypted channel. The Princeps was moving faster than Cale had expected. Cale looked up at the Ordinatus Machina Ultima, its reactor now glowing like a heart on the verge of awakening. If the Titan strode now, it would be the end of secrecy, the beginning of open defiance. And Mars would never be the same. The skies above Mars burned with lightning. It was no natural storm. Energy discharges rippled across the upper atmosphere as orbital defense systems shifted to high readiness. The Noctis Labyrinthus, normally shrouded in still silence, hummed with motion. Skitari maniples took positions along hidden causeways, their augmetic eyes scanning the horizon. Princeps Erend Varro had acted. From the observation deck of the Imperius Tenebris, Erend stood before his command crew. Vox channels whispered with encrypted traffic, fragments of conversations between Mechanicus high officials. Reports of unauthorized convoys, unidentified reactor signatures deep within the crust. He didn't have proof, not in the way the Fabricator General demanded, but he had enough to know something was stirring. Cale Vor's words haunted him. The truth is a weapon, and weapons are only revealed at the moment they are needed. Erend had served alongside Kael for decades. They had fought wars together. But the Kael who returned from Dagonar 4 was different. His precision unchanged. His loyalty altered. In the depths, Kael stood at the threshold of the hidden forge. The alarms from the surface reached even here, faint but insistent. The Ordinatus Machina, Ultima, stood fully armored now, its frame dark but alive with restrained power. The machine spirit's voice was no longer patient. They come for us. Let me stride. Kyle's optics swept across. The gantries. Tech priests scrambled to secure final connections. Reactor shielding hissed as pressure built. The Fabricator General's summons arrived through encrypted vox, a demand for Kael's presence at the council immediately. He ignored it. Instead, he activated the forge's lockdown protocols. Massive blast doors sealed overhead, cutting the hidden forge from the surface. Runes of forbidden design lit the walls, locking out all standard Mechanicus access. Magos Lexium approached, his mechadendrites twitching nervously. Archmagos, the Ordinatus, is untested. If it walks now, Kael cut him off. If it walks now, it will survive. If it remains, it will be dismantled before it ever breathes life. The Titan's voice roared across the chamber. Now. Above, Erend received a fragment of data. A seismic event in the Noctis Labyrinthus. Massive, sustained, rhythmic. Titan footfalls. He turned to his moderati. All crews to stations. Prepare the Imperius Tenebris for engagement. The deck trembled beneath him. Deep within the labyrinthus, the Ordinatus Machina Ultima took its first stride. The ground shook as adamantine feet met the stone of Mars, each impact a declaration of defiance. Kael stood in the command cradle, the Titan's systems flooding into his consciousness. It was unlike any connection he had ever known. No gradual bonding, no careful calibration. The Ordinatus seized him as much as he seized it. The view through the Titan's optics was overwhelming. Mars stretched before him, not as a planet of red dust and silence, but as a living network of forges, veins of fire and steel. The machine spirit spoke again. We are not one Titan. We are Mars unbound. Above, alarms rang through the surface forges. Erend's warlord Titan marched toward the labyrinthus, its pace urgent. He didn't know if he was coming to stop Kael or to protect him. The ground above the Noctis Labyrinthus split apart. Stone and steel erupted in plumes of molten debris as the Ordinatus Machina Ultima emerged from the depths. Its form was vast, greater even than the Imperator-class Titans that guarded the forge temples. Armor blackened with the oil of ancient rites gleamed under the pale light of the Martian sun. Weapons bristled from its frame, some recognizable, others drawn from designs the Mechanicus had not seen since before the dark age of technology. Every step sent shockwaves across the red plains. Kael Vor stood in the command cradle, his consciousness merged with the machine spirit. The connection was overwhelming, the Titan's awareness interlaced with his own. It was not like piloting a war engine. It was like standing beside another mind, both separate and inseparable. From above, warning transmissions screamed across Mechanicus vox bands. The Fabricator General himself spoke, his voice thunder rolling over all frequencies. Archmagos Vor. Power down your engine. This action is unauthorized. You are in breach of the highest codes of the Mechanicus. Comply or be neutralized. Kael did not answer. The Ordinatus Machina. Ultima's voice rumbled through his mind. They call it breach. We call it freedom. Across the plains, the warlord Titan Imperius Tenebris appeared, striding toward the Ordinatus. Its banners streamed in the high winds, armor still bearing the scars of Dagonar IV. Princeps Erendvaro's voice came over a private channel. Kyle, tell me you haven't lost your mind. Kyle's voice was calm, though the hum of the Ordinatus's reactor bled into his tone. I have found clarity, Erend. This is not rebellion. This is Mars reclaiming its future. By tearing the Mechanicus in half? Erend's voice was sharp. You know what will happen. Every Forge world will take sides. Terra will send fleets. This will not end in freedom. It will end in ruin. Kyle's optics flared as he looked toward the approaching warlord. Only ruin for those who refuse to adapt. The Ordinatus Machina. Ultima shifted, weapons locking into ready positions. Plasma coils thrummed. Missile pods unfolded like wings of steel. The Imperius Tenebris slowed its advance, coming to a halt just outside optimal weapons range. Erend's voice came again, lower now. Don't make me choose, Kyle. Kyle hesitated. For a moment, the forge beneath the labyrinthus, the years of loyalty, the bond between them, they all pressed against his decision. But the machine spirit's voice cut through. They will never understand. Only we can make Mars whole. Above them, more Titans were mobilizing. The Legio Mortis had not yet declared a side. Vox traffic swelled with confusion, loyalty codes clashing, orders contradicting one another. Kale's voice carried over the Mechanicus channels, resonant and unyielding. I act in the name of Mars. I act in the name of the Omnissiah's true will. Any who stand in my way stand against the future. The Fabricator General's voice returned, heavy with finality. Then you have declared war upon your own kind. In the distance, the first Mechanicus artillery barrages opened fire. The sky above Mars turned to fire. The plains of Mars shook as Titans marched to war. Red dust rose in massive clouds, shrouding the Noctis Labyrinthus in a haze of firelight and static. Vox channels overflowed with encrypted orders, loyalty codes, and the heated arguments of magi on both sides. Some legios hesitated, unwilling to turn their guns on one of their own. Others saw only treachery and readied their weapons. At the center of it all stood the Ordinatus Machina Ultima, its frame towering over the battlefield. The Titan's reactor burned with restrained fury, its armor glistening with the sheen of newly anointed oils. Kyle Vor stood within the command cradle, every movement of the god machine mirrored by his own will. Across the dust-choked expanse, the warlord Titan Imperius Tenebris advanced cautiously. Princeps Erendvaro's voice broke across the Sage private link. Kyle, stop this before it begins. You think the Fabricator General will negotiate? He will not. You are forcing Mars into a war it cannot win. Kyle's voice was steady. We have been at war for 10,000 years, Erend. Only now are we choosing the terms. Static filled the link for a moment. When Erend spoke again, his voice carried a weight Kyle had never heard before. And if I must fire on you, Kyle's optics dimmed for a fraction of a second. Then you will do what you must. The exchange ended. Around them, the first shots fell. Barrages from loyalist Titans rained down, detonating in vast gouts of fire. The Ordinatus's void shields flared, hexagonal fields of light absorbing the impacts. Each strike resonated through Kyle's mind as if the machine's pain was his own. The Titan's machine spirit roared. Strike back. Weapons arrays activated. Macro cannons locked onto distant targets, their barrels glowing as plasma surged. A single salvo from the Ordinatus ripped through the enemy's forward line, a Reaver Titan crumpling beneath the force of the blast. The explosion lit the horizon, fragments of its armor scattering like meteors. In the Imperius Tenebris, Erin's crew felt the shock waves through the ground. His moderati looked to him for orders, but Erin hesitated. His loyalty warred with his duty. Kyle could feel the princeps' hesitation, even without words. The battlefield roared as the Legio Mortis fractured. Half of its engines turned to shield the Ordinatus, forming a protective phalanx. Others swung their weapons toward it, unwilling to follow Kyle into open rebellion. Kyle's voice carried across the Mechanicus channels. Mars stands at a choice: kneel to terror or rise as its equal. The Fabricator General's reply came through layered encryption. You have doomed us all, Vor. Erin's warlord titan stepped forward, now fully within weapons range. The Imperius Tenebris's Sun Fury plasma annihilator powered up, the hum of its charge audible even through the Vox. Kyle watched it, unmoving. In the command cradle, his hand hovered over the Ordinatus' primary weapon controls. The machine's spirit pressed at the edges of his mind, urging him to fire first. But Kyle hesitated, not from fear, but from the weight of what would follow. If he fired on Erin, there would be no return, and still the sky over Mars burned. The red plains of Mars became an inferno. The moment of hesitation passed. Loyalist titans opened fire in full, their barrages falling like the wrath of ancient gods. Each impact sent gouts of flame skyward, the ground trembling beneath the sheer force of the exchange. Kyle Vor's vision swam with the Ordinatus Machina, Ultima's sensory data, shifting runes, flashing alerts, each one a hymn of war. The Titan's void shields rippled under the assault, arcs of blue lightning dancing across its surface. The machine's spirit roared in his mind. Enough restraint. Let them feel what they have feared for centuries. Kale's mechadendrites tightened around the weapon controls. The Ordinatus's primary armaments came alive, its Sunlance emitter glowing with the light of a newborn star, its missile batteries unfolding like steel wings. The first strike carved a loyalist warlord in half. The beam lanced through its void shields in a single pulse, its reactor core detonating in a blinding surge of light. The blast shook the battlefield, scattering Skitarii maniples like dust. Princeps Erind Varro watched from the Imperius Tenebris, his optics struggling to compensate for the glare. His Moderati's voice trembled. Princeps, if that thing turns its guns on us. I know, Erind replied, his voice grim. Hold position. The Imperius Tenebris advanced slowly, its weapons still locked on the Ordinatus. Kyle opened a private channel. Erind, this is not your war to fight against me. Mars will be stronger for this. Erin's reply came cold. And if it burns in the process? The Ordinatus turned, its optics locking on the Imperius Tenebris. For a moment, both titans stood still, the dust and smoke swirling around them like the breath of ancient beasts. Then the loyalist lines surged forward again. Reaver titans flanked the Ordinatus, their turbo laser destructors hammering at its void shields. Kyle rotated his god machine, its secondary batteries roaring to life. 2 Reavers were reduced to smouldering wrecks in moments, but for every titan that fell, more pressed forward. Loyalist legios from across Mars were joining the battle. The Fabricator General's voice thundered across the Vox. Archmagos Vor, your actions are a stain upon the Omnissiah. Stand down or be erased from the annals of Mars. Kyle's reply was measured, but each word carried the Titan's voice within it. History is written by those who endure. The Ordinatus will endure. As the battle raged, the ground quaked under a new presence. From the eastern horizon, another silhouette emerged, massive, unmistakable. An Imperator Titan of the Legio Mortis, banners tattered but weapons primed. Its princeps declared over the Vox, we march with the Ordinatus, The battlefield shuddered. Eren closed his eyes for a moment within the imperious tenebris. His moderati asked, "Princeps, your orders?" When Eren opened his eyes again, they were hard as steel. "Hold position, for now." Kyle felt the Ordinatus's machine spirit surge with anticipation. They gather. The chains weaken. But Kale knew this was only the beginning. The plain before the Noctis Labyrinthus had become a graveyard of god machines. Smoke and dust hung over the battlefield, curling around the broken forms of titans like the breath of a dying world. The ground itself was scorched black, where plasma had burned deep into the crust. Mars had not seen destruction on this scale since the civil wars of the Dark Mechanicum. And still, the fighting had not stopped. The Ordinatus Machina, Ultima, towered at the heart of the chaos, its void shields crackling as they reformed, patches of armor scorched and blackened. Each step it took sent tremors across the battlefield. Kyle Vor stood within the command cradle, his senses fused with the Titans. Every impact, every strike, every shift in the battle flowed through his mind like blood through veins. Across the ruined horizon, the imperious tenebris remained locked in position, Eren Varro's warlord still holding fire. His loyalty was a wound Kale could not ignore. The machine spirit of the Ordinatus hissed in his mind. The warlord hesitates. End him, and Mars will follow. Kale's voice was cold. Number, not yet. More loyalist titans pressed forward. The Fabricator General had summoned reinforcements from other forges, desperate to bring the Ordinatus down before its presence inspired further defections. A massive Warbringer advanced on the Ordinatus's flank, its quake cannon spooling up to fire. Kyle swung the Ordinatus's primary sun lance toward it. The beam cut through the Warbringer's shields and armor in a single strike. The Titan toppled backward, detonating in a storm of fire that consumed half a dozen Skitarii maniples in an instant. Eren's voice came over a private channel, sharp and urgent. Kale, every strike you make is another death sentence for Mars. This war cannot be won like this. Kyle's optics narrowed. This war will be won by breaking the chains, Eren, not by kneeling and begging for the leash to loosen. Static filled the channel for a moment. Then Eren spoke again, his voice lower. And when terror answers, what then? Kyle's gaze drifted to the eastern horizon. Even now, the dust was rising from the march of more titans, some bearing the colors of the Legio Mortis, others with banners Kale had not seen aligned with Mars for centuries. They will answer, Kale said, his voice heavy with certainty. But Mars will answer louder. The Ordinatus's machine spirit surged with anticipation, its voice a low thunder in Kale's thoughts. We are the storm. We are the god that will unmake gods. As the loyalist lines regrouped, a transmission cut across every Vox channel in range. The Fabricator General himself, his voice layered with ancient distortion, spoke to all Legios at once. Archmagos Vor has defied the Omnissiah. His machine is heresy given form. Destroy him, and Mars will know peace again. Kyle's reply was immediate, his voice carried by the Ordinatus Vox like the roar of a god machine. No peace built on chains is worth keeping. Today, Mars chooses its future. The Legios hesitated. Some titans lowered their weapons. Others powered theirs up. Eren Varro's warlord shifted slightly, its massive silhouette framed against the fires of the battlefield. Kyle could feel it. The choice. The battlefield was on the brink of collapse. Titans stood like mountains at the edge of a storm, banners tattered, void shields flickering, plasma cores burning dangerously close to overload. The air shimmered with heat and static discharge. The ground littered with the remains of Skitarii and god machines alike. At the heart of the chaos, the Ordinatus Machina. Ultima loomed, its armor scarred but intact, its weapons ready. Kyle Vor's mind was fused entirely with the machine spirit now, his own thoughts and the Titan's voice indistinguishable from one another. They will not stand down, the machine spirit whispered through the thunder of reactor pulses. Strike, Kyle Vor, strike, and Mars will remember this day as the birth of its freedom. Kale scanned the horizon. Loyalist Titans were falling back into new formations, a desperate attempt to regroup. But the center of the field was dominated by a single figure, the Imperius Tenebris, Erend Varro's warlord Titan, still unmoving, still holding fire. Erend, Kyle sent across the private channel, his voice resonating like the low hum of a reactor. The moment has come. Where do you stand? There was a long silence. Static filled the channel, the sounds of battle echoing in the distance. Finally, Erend's voice returned, heavy and unsteady. Kale, if I stand with you, I condemn Mars to war with the Imperium. If I stand against you, I fire on a friend who has fought beside me for decades. Kale's reply was sharp, almost impatient. There will be no Mars left if we kneel forever. I do not ask for loyalty to me. I ask for loyalty to our world. Before Erend could respond, the loyalist lines surged again. A massive Imperator Titan advanced, its volcano cannons glowing with the power of the sun. Behind it, a formation of warhounds darted forward, seeking to flank the Ordinatus. Kyle's voice merged with the machine spirits as they spoke as one. Enough. The Ordinatus unleashed its full arsenal. Its sunlance fired a beam so bright it left afterimages even in Kyle's augmented optics. The Imperator's shields collapsed under the force, and its left leg crumpled, sending the god machine crashing to the ground in an explosion that shook the Martian crust. Missile salvos streaked skyward, arcing down on the warhounds. 2 were obliterated instantly, their remains scattering like broken toys. The survivors fell back, their formation shattered. The battlefield froze. Loyalist Titans hesitated, their advance broken by the sheer devastation. And then the Imperius Tenebris moved. Erend's warlord strode forward, coming to stand between the Ordinatus and the Loyalist line. His voice came over the open vox, clear and resolute. This war ends here. Any who fire upon the Ordinatus will answer to the Imperius Tenebris. The Loyalist formations wavered. Some magi shouted in outrage. Others fell into silence. Kyle felt the machine spirit surge with triumph. He stands with us. But Kyle knew this was not victory. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous. For now, the battle paused. But the decision Erend had made placed them all beyond the point of return. The next clash would decide the fate of Mars itself. Was coming. The red sky over Mars was silent. It was the silence that follows only the most terrible of battles, not peace, but the breath before another blow. The plains before the Noctis Labyrinthus were a graveyard of broken god machines, their twisted frames lying half buried in dust and fire. The banners of dozens of legios lay torn, scorched black by the fury of the war that had been fought here. In the center of the devastation stood the Ordinatus Machina Ultima, scarred but unbroken. Its reactor pulsed faintly, each beat like the echo of a dying star. Kyle Vor stood in the command cradle, his thoughts heavy. The machine spirit's voice had grown quieter since the battle, its tone less urgent, almost patient. We have stood against the Fabricator General. We have survived. Now Mars must decide what it will become. Kyle looked across the field. The Imperius Tenebris stood nearby, its armor blackened, banners tattered. Princeps Erend Varro had made his choice. and in doing so had tied his fate to Kael's. The vox between them crackled. Kael! Erin's voice was rough, worn from the strain of battle. We bought time, but you know terror will not stay silent. Kael's gaze swept the horizon. Already, reports spoke of loyalist fleets mustering in the void, of diplomatic demands that would soon give way to war. I know, Kael replied, his voice steady. But Mars has spoken once. It will speak again. Across the field, surviving titans of the Legio Mortis gathered. Some bore the colors of Kael's cause. Others bore no banners at all. Stripped away in the chaos, their loyalties uncertain. The Fabricator General's voice came across the high channel, cold and distant. Archmagos Vor, you have taken Mars to the brink of ruin. If you stand down now, perhaps some fragment of what you have built can be spared. Kael's answer was quiet, but it carried through the vox like a blade. Nothing worth keeping was built on fear. The Ordinatus turned slowly, its massive form moving toward the distant forges of Mars. Each step left deep scars in the ground, as if marking the planet with the weight of its defiance. Erin's warlord moved alongside it. No words passed between them now. There was no need. In the skies above, the light of Phobos glinted off distant ships. Soon the void would blaze with the fires of another war. But for this moment, Mars was theirs. Kael looked once more across the battlefield. The broken titans, the shattered forges, the silence of a world that had survived its own death. The machine spirit's voice came one final time, soft as a whisper. All empires fall, Kael Vor. But some fall on their own terms. Kael closed his eyes, feeling the echo of that truth in his own thoughts. The Ordinatus Machina. Ultima marched on, its shadow stretching long, across the red plains, toward a future that none could see.